My preview and predictions for the 2024 Mexico City Grand Prix. Alright guys, how's everyone doing? Hope everyone is absolutely buzzing for this weekend. In the middle of the triple header right now, so life is good. Formula One is back in great action, and we have the US Grand Prix to thank for that. It was an absolute banger. Just a quick reflection on last week's race before we jump into Mexico this weekend. What a performance from Ferrari. I mean, after quite a poor Singapore Grand Prix, they came to Austin with zero upgrades versus everyone else on the grid having some, and they absolutely smashed it. Getting that 1-2, Charles Leclerc with an immaculate drive to get P1, and Sainz coming home in P2. They couldn't have asked for much more there. And then of course we had that Norris and Verstappen controversy. I gave my opinions to that in my driver ratings video, so make sure to watch that if you haven't seen it already. But yeah, not a good look for Lando Norris, to be honest, to come home in P4. He kind of needed the points for the championship, but it didn't end up going that way. And then of course the other major story in that race was Lewis Hamilton binning it at the start of the race. Couldn't quite believe my eyes when I saw that. He had sort of made up a good few positions on the first lap and then just chucked it all away. So it was quite disappointing for him. And it was quite disappointing for me as well, because looking at my predictions for last week, I absolutely binned it, to be honest. In qualifying, I did okay. I predicted Norris on pole, and I predicted Charles Leclerc in 4th place. The rest of them were pretty bad, because Hamilton I predicted in 2nd, and then he ended up qualifying 2nd last. So that's a bit disappointing. And then as for the race predictions, I got all of them absolutely wrong, because I did not see Ferrari being that strong, because I was thinking too much about Singapore. I kind of forgot that Singapore was vastly different to Austin. So yeah, my predictions there, absolutely crap. 0 out of 5 in the race. At least I got 2 out of 5 in the qualifying, but ultimately I need to up my game, and I will this week. So watch the end to see my predictions for this race weekend. So moving on to the race this weekend, diving into the track itself, and on paper it looks like a banger, to be fair. There's nice long straights, loads of opportunities for overtaking. Into the first corner you can often see a lot of people taking different lines, trying to prioritise the straight down to turn 4. You get loads of action in there, loads of drivers running wide. Quite a lot of contentious moves going on in there, so maybe we'll see some more controversy this weekend. Cough cough, Lando Norris and Max Verstappen potentially. Moving into the second sector, you often see moves after the long straight into turn 4, as I just mentioned, and then you sort of get that slow speed section where it's quite hard for the drivers to follow. Moving into the S section, it's great in qualifying. You see quite a lot of track limits violations going on in there, but it's not that good in the race, because essentially drivers just fall back, because following the turbulent wake is really difficult through there. Moving into the last sector, kind of more of the same in that regard. It's quite hard to follow through there, but it does have that grandstand feel. It's quite a cool section of the track, and then that's us right back round to the start. Moving into how last year's race went, Ferrari had a front row lockout, which was quite surprising in a year full of Verstappen dominance, and Red Bull dominance, to be fair. But unfortunately for them, they had lost it by the end of the first corner, because Verstappen got an amazing slingshot from 3rd on the grid, took the inside, took the lead of the race, and his teammate Sergio Perez at his home Grand Prix tried to swing it round the outside, went for a heroic move, and he just binned it, didn't he? He hit Leclerc on the inside of him. There wasn't enough room for 3. He was basically out of the race at the first corner of his home Grand Prix. Quite heartbreaking stuff. And then, as tends to happen at the Mexico City track, the gaps opened up between all the cars to about 1.5 seconds, because the altitude is just so high there that the cars overheat. The engines aren't getting enough oxygen to cool them down, so they've always got to leave a gap essentially. So it kind of makes the racing a little bit non-existent at times, but hopefully this weekend that won't happen. Anyway, moving on to lap 36 in the race, Kevin Magnussen had a massive failure on his car, took him out of the race. Red flags were waved, and we got a restart of the race. And Max Verstappen managed to hold on to the lead into turn 1, and it was behind him that Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc had quite a nice fight. Hamilton managed to get past Leclerc after the restart after a couple of laps, with a very nice move down the inside at turn 1. And the only other really big story in that race was that Lando Norris came from quite far back to get up to P5 in the race, overtaking Oscar Piastri in the process. It was team orders, but he had pace on him that day. He managed to get past George Russell in that race as well, up into P5. It was quite an impressive performance from him, clearly likes the track, so maybe that will dictate some of my predictions. Moving into said predictions for the Mexico City Grand Prix. Honestly, who knows at this point which drivers are going to come out on top. It seems really hard to predict at this stage of the season because there are like 3-4-ish teams that can always win the race, it seems. I'm adding Mercedes in there, but can't really see it happening this weekend. So my qualifying predictions: in P5, I'm going to have George Russell. I think that he's going to have a good performance this weekend. He's going to compound how he did in Austin to outperform Lewis Hamilton. That's what I believe. P4, I'm going to go Carlos Sainz. Again, continuing Ferrari's strong performance, but he's not going to manage to pip Max Verstappen in P3, who always seems to go well around this track. The Red Bull always seems to be packaged really well so that it works well at high altitude. Even in the sort of Mercedes dominance era, Red Bull always had a strong car at Mexico. You could almost reliably expect them to be in amongst it. In P2, I'm going to go for Lando Norris. I think he's going to bounce back from Austin's sort of misfortunes towards the end of the race, have another good qualifying like he did there. And then that means in P1, I'm going to go for Charles Leclerc. That might be recency bias, but I see Ferrari having another strong car for this weekend, and I think that he's going to make full advantage of it in qualifying. And then in the race, I'm going to give a shout out to the homeboy hero, Sergio Perez. He's going to come home in P5. I believe in you, Sergio. You can do this. P4, I'm going to go for Oscar Piastri. I think that, again, he's going to kind of be off Lando Norris. In third place, I'm going to go Charles Leclerc. Unfortunately, I don't think that he's going to be able to convert the pole position into the race win, which means that the top two is going to be Verstappen and Norris. How do I see it going? I think that Verstappen is going to extend his championship lead again. Norris in P2, Verstappen in P1. He's just so strong around this track, I can't see anyone else winning. And that wraps up our preview for the Mexico City Grand Prix. Can't wait for it. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out my driver ratings for the last race in Austin. Should just be right here, so give it a click. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video.